Talk lines are open now at 314-969-9797 or toll free at 866-455-9797. You're listening to The Dana Show.
971talk.com/Dana. Find me on Twitter, Dana Radio or Dana Lash, DLOESCH as well. Also find me at DanaRadio.com. We have been telling you about this unbelievable story involving award-winning 27-year journalism veteran Larry Connors, who has been with KMOV. I've grown up watching this man deliver the news every evening. And he made an observation on Facebook involving the IRS, and just sort of, you could tell it was speculative for the purpose of discussion. And he was asking about the IRS and relating some of his experiences after his interview with President Obama, which was pretty tough. And he received a lot of heat and a lot of praise for that interview, which I found to be fair. And he was just simply asking hard-hitting questions that other people weren't asking, which is why it probably seems so insane to mainstream media. Well, as a result of that, he was fired from KMOV. Mark Pimentel, who is the president and GM over at KMOV Channel 4, announced yesterday that Connors is no longer a KMOV News reporter. And he said, quote, "Larry is certainly entitled to his opinion, but taking a personal political position on one of the station's Facebook pages creates an appearance of bias that is inconsistent with important journalistic standards." Joining me right now, free to speak finally, and he opened up a new account on Twitter, Larry Connors. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dana. Thanks for the time. Before we get into this, my situation is really small in a lot of things in the world, and I want to commend you and your staff at the station. I've been watching what you guys are doing to help the folks in Moore, Oklahoma, and that's something really serious in life.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I appreciate those words, and that is it very much is, and it's the scenes coming out of there would be the scenes coming from Oklahoma are absolutely awful.
They are. They started the funerals of a 9-year-old boy. One of them, I mean, it just breaks your heart.
Oh, my goodness. And then you hear about the teachers, too, how everything that they did to keep those children safe.
Right.
That story, with everything going on, it's been kind of a crazy news cycle for the past couple of weeks. This story about the IRS, though, we know that there are credible cases where the IRS has targeted a number of different groups, a number of different reporters, individuals, not just groups, have also been targeted. And you wrote something that was on your personal Facebook page. That's something that I wanted to clarify, too.
Let me correct. It was a KMOV Facebook page, which we are encouraged to put stuff up there that's engaging, will create conversation. If I just put on there that I'm going down to have cookie and donuts,
right.
I can't decide between, well, no one's going to care. So we're encouraged to put things on. I have been asked in the past, and in fact, a few days before this posting, I received an email from one of the managers asked to do personal perspective on different stories. The most recent prior to that was the 4 children who died in the fire in Percy. Mm-hmm. And I talked about Percy, Illinois, and I talked about how I looked at both as a journalist of 50 years and as a father. And so then on this case, you're right. It was just me posting and posing a question, opening a forum. Mr. Pimentel, the general manager at Channel 4, is wrong. I did not post any position. I stated no position as to if they did or not. In fact, I said I don't really want to believe they did it. All I know is the timeline suggests that after that Obama interview, things began to change. What had happened in that post I did not say is that I had had some prior tax issues before the interview. I didn't mention it because that wasn't my concern. That wasn't what was in play. Since August of 2011, I've been on a payment plan as my tax attorney and so forth. We work on trying to work out some past taxes and deal with them, which is fully legal. Folks owe back taxes. They have all kinds of ways. I've been paying taxes. I'm not a tax frauder, chief. I continue doing that. Had the interview with President Obama 2012, April 2012. Between that date and September 2012, the IRS informs me it's going to pull my payment plan. Well, I get my tax attorney back involved. What do we do to continue this? How do we roll it over and so forth? So I'm not hit with one big chunk. And we're working on. They will not do it. And the lien was originally filed in Chicago. I don't know how tax works in this region. We just found it interesting. It's done in Chicago.
Yeah, that's very odd.
And then we didn't even know about it until it was filed here in October locally. Anyway, I continued to make payments on that plan until January of this year, until my attorney said, "Why are you still paying?" I said, "Well, because I don't want to be in default of the plan." She said, "You had no plan, and you you to cease. I said, they're cashing my checks.
Yeah.
She said, yeah, but it's not going to the plan. It's not resolving it the way we want it resolved, so quit paying it. And I still, at that point, Dana, did not make any tire connection to the President Obama interview. Only in the last week or so, as we've heard this stuff come out of Cincinnati, Cleveland, that we have, quote, rogue agents, the IRS has admitted, was doing some of this stuff. And I think, the timing of that was in April. My situation began to change after April in the interview. I just raised a question.
Yeah.
Was it coincidence? I don't know. And I opened it up for discussion. And that set the station back. And as you said, the way they handled it created even more firestorm, because then they ordered me to read a statement on the air, which was misleading and not completely clear.
You didn't write that statement, did you?
I did not write that statement, and I think someone should ask them who did write it. I don't know who wrote it, who insisted. I know the news director, Sean McLaughlin, gave it to me read and would not let me make a change. He kind of considered that I could, so one of the personnel sent me one to my computer that I could edit on, and I was just wrapping up an edit, basically adding one or two simple lines, which I told him I wasn't going to extend it, make a monologue out of it. And it came up to me and said, forget it, it's not going to happen, and then walked away. Well, I added the one or word or two I was missing, sent it to him, walked into his office and said, so we're not doing a statement? He said, we're not doing that statement, we're doing what I have right here, and this is it. I said, that's not right. It's incomplete, it's misleading, it's going to make it look like I'm backing down or anything like that. He insisted I do. Read it the way he presented, and sure enough, that's where the backlash really started, that folks said, well, Larry's trying to hide his past issues.
Right.
And so now he's backing off, and that's when I can take a lot of heat in this business and have been called all kinds of names. I don't have a problem with that. But then I had folks writing into my Facebook and others saying that I'm a tax cheat, a tax fraud. That's a criminal allegation.
Yes, it's kind of hard to be a tax cheat if you're on a payment plan.
Yeah, and I'm not going to put up with being, I didn't want to put up with being called a tax cheat and being labeled
a criminal.
Well, it's
defamatory. Yeah, absolutely.
But they would not let me respond in any way, gag me, shut down my access to Facebook. It stayed up for a while for others to post, and I couldn't respond. And then they shut down Twitter and Facebook, and then even the station email. Yeah,
it's so odd the way that they handled it. It actually created a bigger controversy because they simply would not allow you to explain. And that's what I have your original Facebook post still. I screen capped the entire page.
Thank you.
And it's because what I got out of it was that you suggested when I read this, what I came away with was the suggestion that after the interview, the situation with the IRS intensified. And I know everyone was waiting to see you explain it. And then I figured that, well, let's see, KMOV's muzzling him. And they never let you, it could have been taken care of had they let you just explain it. But I kind of got the sense that they didn't want you to explain it and they didn't really want to take care of it.
Well, I know a lot of folks have put that in front of me and asked about my speculation as to why, and some have posed to various issues, and I don't speculate, but I mean, there's some things in there. All I know is what I put in there was a fact. The timeline I gave you is a fact. And the only reason they knew I had prior issues is because when I was called in and asked, when you put this up, what are you talking about? What are you afraid? And I gave them the facts. Mm-hmm. My wife says sometimes I'm maybe too open and too honest. I told them what was going on. So I gave them the bullets to put in. Oh, they probably wouldn't have a gun. I don't know. But anyway, I gave them the bullets to throw at me. While I went ahead and explained, because I felt I owed it to them. I had no problem. But then they turn around and you're right. When they mishandled it by making me read an unclear, incomplete statement. They mishandled it again by taking me off the air, it just continued to catch fire. And then they were making statements while I was gagged.
Right.
Making any statements.
And to point out, too, I remember you did interviews with former President George Bush, and those were pretty hard-hitting as well. And that's one of the things that, I don't honestly even really know what your politics are, and I think that's irrelevant. I just think that, I've always appreciated your body of work, and you've always asked difficult questions. And it just seems odd to me that suddenly that's a big problem, because you've been pretty hard on Bush before when you asked questions. Not unnecessarily so. You asked fair questions that other people were asking at the time.
These folks got just as angry with me and got cold to me as Obama's people did when I got onto his case. And I also followed up the post that created El Furor. I finally had time to put information together, and I made another post before they shut me down about how the Republicans, during Bush's term, had gone after a Pasadena pastor in his church because he was speaking against the war, how Nixon used the IRS against opponents, how the GOP had gone after the NAACP, and the Republicans were silent all that time. And so I pointed that out, too, for balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's incredibly unfortunate to see this play out this way. And I wish that KMOV would have given you the chance to expound on what you have, because it's Facebook, and it's just Facebook isn't a substitute for the 5 and 6 p.m. news.
No, and you know what? As I said, they want us to. I've got accolades from both Mark Pimentel, the general manager, in email, and Sean McLaughlin, the news director, and the head of promotions, about how much traffic I had been building and getting on Facebook. In fact, the head of promotions said, I really need to have you teach others how to get that kind of attention, you know. Mm-hmm. And so the Facebook, of course, that they want us to do, and they press us into do, they want that kind of interaction. And they want that because it engages with the community.
Right, right.
April 17th, Dana, I went on and did something rare in Facebook, and I said, I am going to step outside my normal boundaries, and I'm going to call the guy that died in that police shootout after throwing bombs at police. I'm going to say he is no longer a bombing suspect. He is a Boston bomber. 95+% of those responding said, way to say it, way to call it, we're tired of mealy-mousing around. But I got 3 to 5% saying, well, I guess I can never trust you to be fair and impartial again, because if someone's charged with something, you're going to assume they're guilty. Of course not.
Right.
That was an entirely different case. But you know how it is.
Oh, yeah,
have their
absolutely.
own perspective and how they set their arena.
Well, yeah, I think in some sort of attempt to say that they are unbiased, KMOV unfortunately made the error of coming off as the biased network in St. Louis.
Well, you know, you raise a good question, and I know some others have said, well, are they afraid the IRS coming after them? They got to target me. Pimentel, in one of our meetings before all this happened, sat down and said, we are getting, his words were, we're getting this from all over both sides. He said, I'm getting negative and positive. He said, and most of them are for you. I thought, well, that's good. And then he read me 4 that were very negative, you know, one of them calling me basically a tax cheat. And I said, now that's the problem I have with folks that are able to call me a criminal because I can't defend myself. But then I pulled out 4 others and read to him, and knowing they had received one of them, whereas someone said, I hope Larry Connor's on paid vacation for good work. I said, so we have a balance. I got some, you got some. And but in the end, they told me they're terminating with cause because that Facebook post compromised my integrity and credibility. And he said, do you think you can still be credible and have integrity? I said, yes, I can. If I do a story today, let's say we have cars that are catching fire, a particular brand, and I say, I have one of these, I wonder if I might have a problem with it. Well, are they suddenly going to say, well, you can't do any more stories on that. You've already shown bias on that. When I'm asking a question.
Right. Right. I mean, that's just it. That's just it. Well, Larry Connors, as I've said, I've grown up watching you on television.
I wish you wouldn't do that, Dana. What are you trying to say?
You're my favorite. You've always been my favorite anchor. You've been the best. I tell you.
You know what? I'm celebrating 50 years in broadcast.
You set the standard.
As a matter of fact, 38 of it in St. Louis, and I did not spend 38 years building that credibility and integrity and raising all you young'uns on my voice to destroy it with a Facebook posting, which was, I didn't defame anyone.
Right.
I didn't go out and do drugs. It's uncalled for.
I completely agree with you. Well, there are a lot of people who stand by you. It's very, very unfortunate. Heaven forbid you practice journalism and encourage open discussion. Larry Connors.
I have a question of you real quick. What do you think is the difference between corporate Facebooks, private Facebooks, and the media Facebooks when their owners are trying to get you out there and get traffic built and so forth?
Well, you know, I've always looked at it this way. I believe every reporter has an opinion, and it's biased to think otherwise.
Sure.
That's what. And when I see news agencies try to say, you know, to the opposite of that, I just kind of raise an eyebrow. But I think new media has done absolute wonders for journalism. People are talking about the news more so than they ever have been before, and it's localized. Everybody can report what's going on in their area, and that's the whole point of news. It should be anyway.
I agree with you. I agree.
There you go. Larry Connors, KMOV's, formerly KMOV, and you can find him. Go follow him on Twitter, Larry Connors USA. Go find him. Go follow him. Larry, we'd love to
get a Facebook and blog put together on that title at some point.
Well, you let us know if you need help. You're welcome on this program anytime. Thank you, sir, for everything.
All right, thanks, Dan.
All right, take care. All right, folks, your calls when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Take This is The Dana Show.